Thanks very much for inviting me back. I was here last year, and I see some familiar faces. And I always appreciate a good reason to visit IKEA. Oh, I mean Portland, you know. But yeah, Portland is IKEA for my troop. I'm Leah Callahan. This past February, I marked my 15th year with Duncan & Brown in Eugene. I started working there as the office manager to put myself through college, and by 2003, we had enough work that John Brown and Rick Duncan invited me to train with them as an appraiser. I became certified in 2006, which is right when the fun began. So this is definitely not my first rodeo in terms of economic recessions. As a kid in the Pacific Northwest, I experienced a few before that, but it was my first as a professional analyst. So I'm excited to report some of the better news this year than we had last year, the prior years. Our firm analyzes all property types. Most recently, my personal practice has focused on office and retail and the manufactured home park sector. So I figured I'd jump right into the data and share some high-level observations about our market area in Eugene. I'll be happy to take questions at the very end of everybody's presentations. It sounds like we have a lot of content to share with you guys, and we don't want to make anybody short. In 2016, Eugene and Springfield caught up to Oregon's growth cycle. You may have heard there were also some elections. I won't speak to that too much, but both the optimism and the uncertainty from that season is reflected in our market trends. Eugene and Springfield have historically shared an urban growth boundary. The state started to require that our cities create independent UGBs. In December 2016, Springfield adopted its own urban growth boundary, and pending state approval, the city will add 257 acres in the Gateway and Millrace areas. Those are at the north and south fringes of Springfield, respectively. This expansion is planned to support commercial mixed use and industrial employment use. The city determined that it had sufficient supply for housing already within its UGB. Eugene began the formal process to adopt an urban growth boundary this January. It's still underway. The plan calls for an expansion in two areas. One area is known as Clear Lake. It's in Eugene's northwest corner. Expansion in this area will add 924 acres. This land is planned for jobs, a community park, and a school. A second area in Santa Clara at the north central fringe in Eugene would add 35 acres for a community park. And again, the city has determined that it's got sufficient housing land supply within its UGB. The intention is that there will be increased infill development as well as more dense development over time. I don't know if my pointer will reach. The left chart shows that Eugene's population growth has trended with Oregon's population growth on the whole. Springfield has grown more slowly. On the chart on the right-hand side, it might be hard to read, but these are also going to be posted on your website. 5 of the outlying communities nearest to Eugene and Springfield, which are Junction City, Crestwell, Coburg, and Veneta, as well as Cottage Grove, have had faster population growths than Eugene and Springfield. Cottage Grove is somewhat further away and experiencing slower growth, but job increases that have been occurring in this area most recently may attract more residents beyond this year. We've heard reports of investors and developers that are exploring housing and commercial opportunities in this community. Some headlines for you on economic conditions. In 2010 to 2013, the first 3 years after the recession, industries with the lowest average wages added the most jobs in our county. In the past 3 years, 2013 to 2016, industries with low average wages continued to add jobs, and high-wage industries started adding jobs. This has been driven by business growth in the healthcare and tech sectors. Middle wage jobs in construction, manufacturing, and local education have been slower to recover. Moderate job gains are forecast into 2024, but these are expected to now be slower than were previously forecasted prior to the recession. In 2016 and more recently, some offsetting news was reported. While job losses are fairly negative to report, change does provide opportunities, and we're watching closely to see how business changes are going to affect real estate. For example, a former subsidiary of Symantec announced layoffs and a plan to shutter its Springfield location. While Symantec's 14-acre complex is for sale, the company plans to continue operating there and leasing back one of its 2 buildings. In November 2015, communications chip maker Broadcom purchased a 1.2 million square foot former computer chip factory for $20 million. It announced plans in May 2016 that it would hire 229 employees and begin production. However, within 6 months, by November, that plan was abandoned, and the factory is back on the market now at an offered price of $25 million. Quest Diagnostics is buying Peace Health lab operation. Peace Health is one of our major medical care providers. This is leading to layoff announcements and potentially permanent job cuts when the merger is completed. Tacoma-based Columbia Bank is buying Pacific Continental Bank, and this will result in an estimated 95 job cuts. When the merger is completed, there will be 2 banks remaining with headquarters in Lane County, Oregon Pacific Bank and Summit Bank. Do we have any lenders from those banks here? Some more about our economy. Of the 45 breweries located in Willamette Valley, 14 are located in Lane County. Some of the more well-known brands in Eugene include Steelhead, Ninkasi, and Oakshire. Some of our newer breweries with tasting rooms and pubs include Elkhorn and Falling Sky in Eugene and Planktown in downtown Springfield. They have awesome burgers. A majority stake in Hop Valley, which has a Eugene location and a Springfield location, was sold to Miller Coors in 2016. And as of February 2017, Lane County is now home to 8 distilleries, with Eugene's Whitaker neighborhood becoming a fermentation destination, thanks to the grouping of local vintners, brewers, and now distillers. In March 2017, Eugene launched a publicly owned high-speed fiber optic network. This infrastructure was largely driven by the growth of what's being branded the Silicon Shire. I wore my Lord of the Rings scarf in honor of our Silicon Shire. This infrastructure provides affordable high-speed internet to about 120 buildings in downtown Eugene. Job opportunities, wages, and lifestyle are drawing people and investments from outside our region, which we anticipate will deepen the influence of this sector on our economy. So we'll move on to market trends in single-family residential. Single-family building activity in Eugene is still about 50% of the 2003 to 05 activity. While development has increased more than 50% since 2011, it's still well below pre-recession levels. Building activity in Springfield has dropped to 70% of 2003 and 05, and recent activities is actually still at the lowest level since we started collecting this data in 1999. This downward trend is driven by slow increases in wage levels locally, coupled with the lack of land and lots available for ready development. Most new residential development has been infill development or redevelopment of other lots with a higher density. All have been relatively small projects compared to pre-recession subdivisions. Development land prices are returning to values of $125,000 to nearly $200,000 per acre, with lot construction costs pushing $50,000 per lot. Lot construction costs have increased 20 to 40% since 2008. We do anticipate stronger demand for single-family housing with increased in-migration of families and as millennials grow older and form households. However, the constrained supply of single-family land in Eugene and Springfield will continue to create challenges for new development on a larger scale. Complications may also come, I was just talking with Matt about this, from neighborhood associations that could stall planning approvals by bringing legal challenges over the impacts of additional housing in established neighborhoods. This chart shows the trend in housing prices, average housing prices in Lane County over the past 10 years, but we've actually been studying trends going back to the 1960s. The green line, the volatile green line, shows the actual average price each month, and the dashed line shows the long-term trend. Long-term average home prices have increased about 5.3% annually since the 60s to the current quarter. Looking back to 2000, which also captures the early 2000s recession, the 17-year average increase is lower at about 3.5% annually. Average prices have returned to the pre-recession levels, although there's more volatility in the average in the most recent quarter. Turning now to multifamily residential trends, which is a little bit more familiar to folks, especially for Eugene and the campus area. Stabilized apartment vacancy in our off-campus complex is about 5%. Currently, the market vacancy is just under 3%, and managers are reporting very low turnover and very high demand. In 2016, rents increased on average about 3 to 8%, and they now exceed pre-recession levels. There remains a strong demand for permanent affordable housing units, and those are units with rents at or below 30% of the median household income. For Lane County, this would be around $1,200 per month, which is well below rents being offered for newer 3-bedroom units in the area. One interesting thing of note is that from the appraisal definition of financial feasibility of more than 0 NPV, average rents for new apartments in Springfield could support new development. However, risk of developing new units in Eugene is perceived to be lower risk, so developers are still prioritizing Eugene when selecting sites. As multifamily land is absorbed in Eugene, and we have some fairly large developments happening now and also on the boards, available tracts in Springfield may become more appealing. The question right now is when? This slide highlights some of our larger recent transactions. In 2016, Eugene Springfield had 25 apartment properties sell for a combined total over $337 million. Average unit price was over $175,000 per unit. Of these properties, only one 8-plex was located in Springfield, and all the others were in Eugene. Overall rates have been below 6% for about 18 months. They've been in the 5.0 to 5.5 range, depending, of course, on the specific property. And there is some fluctuation in this range, depending on whether you're looking at in-place income or forecasted rents. Overall rates have generally been declining in line with regional trends, and investors have ranged from regional buyers to international institutions. We had a group out of Singapore purchased the Capstone Apartments in downtown Eugene, and it was part of a much larger multi-state campus apartment portfolio. The Eugene-Springfield industrial sector continues to respond to increased demand from the cannabis industry, from producers to processors. There have also been several newer owner-occupied facilities developed for manufacturing and other light industrial uses. But such development is also constrained, just like housing, by available land supply suitable for industrial uses. This has led to some businesses to locate in outlying communities. I mentioned Cottage Grove earlier, especially towns with good transportation access, such as access to Interstate 5 or rail lines. One new project was recently announced that would add more than 83,000 square feet of general warehouse space to our supply. The location is in West Eugene, and the developer has stated he plans not to lease to cannabis businesses in order to comply with his mortgage loan terms. So turning to market trends in the office sector, Eugene Springfield had 24 office properties sell in 2016 for a combined total of just under $43 million. Prices ranged from $79 to $240 per square foot. Overall rates in this sector indicate a much wider range compared to other sectors, but we also saw a downward trend in 2016. I think Mark asked about whether we were looking at increased compression in cap rates over the long term. I'd say at this point they appear to be flattening with a possible decline in the near term. I think that we're seeing some stability in rents, and we're also seeing some potential operation efficiencies, and people are still buying at these lower cap rates. There was modest business expansion in 2016 that led to an absorption of most of our market's excess supply. Vacancy is generally at equilibrium overall right now, although if you're a tenant seeking Class B or Class C office space, you can still find it pretty easily, and certain Class A offices still have shell space available for build-out with tenant-specific TIs. There is now a perception of economic stability and modest rent growth, and yet average rent levels do not support speculative new development of general office space. I've been working a lot recently in the medical office subsector. This niche has remained strong locally, even during the economic downturn, driven in part by changes in our national and state insurance markets. There's been very limited leasing and sales activity in this sector to show actual trends in rents and prices and overall rates, though trends in transactions that have occurred are showing that we're following regional changes. Institutional buyers have found that institutional buyers that were buying properties, multifamily properties in Eugene and Springfield, have also been buying investment properties in the medical office sector. This slide highlights two recent transactions. One was just announced in the paper this week. That was the sale of the Neurospine Institute. It's a just over 22,000 square foot medical building that sold for around $500 a foot. It includes an ambulatory surgery center. And then also we had the sale of the Northwest Specialty Clinics building, which is adjacent to the Riverbend Medical Center campus in Springfield. This was also purchased by an institutional investor and also sold for around $500 a foot. Eugene and Springfield are home to several Class A medical facilities, including Level 2 and Level 3 trauma centers in Springfield, medical research and development firms, both associated with the U of O and independent, and outpatient surgical facilities. The Veterans Administration opened a new 125,000 square foot facility in Northeast Eugene last year, and Mackenzie Willamette Medical Center in Springfield is undergoing an $80 million renovation, an expansion that's anticipated to be completed next year. So turning now to retail trends, which is also an area where I've been spending a lot of time in the past couple of quarters. In 2016, Eugene and Springfield had 28 retail properties sell for a combined total just under $32 million. Unit prices ranged from $60 to $430 per square foot, but averaging around $160 per square foot, with a couple of outliers in the $900 to $1,500 range that reflected ground leases. In the first quarter of 2017, Eugene and Springfield had just 8 properties sell for a combined total of right around $120 million, which included the sale of our largest power center in the I-5 corridor, I think between Portland and San Francisco, the Shops at Gateway in Springfield. The demoling and remodeling process was just completed last year, and they added a substantial amount of new pad development along Gateway Boulevard. A constrained land supply and stable supply and demand curve in this sector is keeping spec development low. One small project located in one of Eugene's primary commercial corridors is under development, but other new development is only occurring when a project is substantially pre-leased. So turning now to cap rates, we've had some measurable trends since 2014. Last year it was getting a little hard to measure, but we could see some trends emerging, and this past year we could actually measure them. Overall rates have definitely declined on the whole, and Eugene and Springfield is emerging as an appealing market area compared to more saturated prime markets like Seattle and Portland. In addition to trends in the primary real estate sectors, some other activity I thought was worth noting includes that we had a sale of a high-quality manufactured home community in Eugene. It sold at just under a 5% overall rate. Several Dollar General properties located in rural Oregon are on the market, offered in the 6.5 or so overall rate range. Gateway Plaza is an anchored retail center in Cottage Grove. It's being offered right now at a 7% overall rate. And several Ray's grocery properties, if you're familiar with Ray's in our smaller rural Oregon and Northern California communities, have been selling in the 8% overall cap rate range. So I think to address the question of whether there are potential higher returns, I think people are casting a wider net, looking for alternative investments, both to expand their property type portfolio, as well as in other market areas beyond Eugene and Springfield. We're also seeing sales of older buildings in downtown Eugene that are being purchased for adaptive reuse. And there is zero land supply available there, but the location supports a mix of commercial and multifamily uses. In addition, we're seeing overall rates slowly increasing from lenders, but how that will affect investments and overall rates will remain to be seen. So far, we haven't seen any specific one-to-one changes. So I stated earlier that I wouldn't be dwelling too much on politics. Anticipation, however, is the name of the game in investing, and I'm hearing both optimism and uncertainty of 2016 is continuing into 2017. Rhetorical topics that have been lobbed my way that might affect real estate are issues that all Oregonians will face, but I think possibly in different ways for Eugene and Springfield. So this would include the potential local impact of statewide rent stability measures, the potential effect of anti-immigration policies, and the outcomes of state and federal agency budget cuts on local spending for housing, education, and public safety. Confidence in economic growth from our local projects is strong, however. The University of Oregon will break ground this fall on a 10-year campus expansion project. A mixed-use development will break ground near our 5th Street Market area later this year. And Springfield continues to execute its long-term plans in the Glenwood and Main Street areas. So I was going to take questions now, but I'll pass it over to Katie, who'll talk about Salem and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you, Leah. And thank you to Matthew, wherever he is, for inviting me to come speak again this year. I was here last year and enjoyed my time, and so I looked forward to coming again today. So I introduced myself earlier today, but for those of you that weren't here, my name is Katie Bands. I'm a commercial real estate appraiser and co-owner of Powell Bands Valuation in Salem. We appraise everything under the sun except for single family. So that ranges from retail, your basics, retail, office, industrial, subdivisions, but we also do churches, schools, landfills, you name it, we'll take it on. For better or worse sometimes. I have a lot of material to go through, so this is going to be a bird's eye, kind of a brief overview, but if you do have questions at the end, feel free to track me down. Overall, all of my news is good news. So my job is pretty easy today. Vacancy is low across all sectors. Rents are generally holding steady or increasing. The most exciting thing, at least for me, in Salem-Keizer is all of the new construction that's happening. So I know up here in Portland, it is commonplace to see cranes on every other corner, and there's a lot of hustle and bustle. But in Salem, not so much. However, now we have a few cranes up, building is going on. It's an exciting time, so I'll be showing you some photographs of that. Multifamily and industrial property types are king right now. They have staggering rent increases for the near term, frictional vacancy, and brisk absorption. So let's get started. I'm going to start with the office sector. This submarket languished during the recession and didn't really start to recover until mid-2014. Average overall vacancy right now is 6.4%. So this is down quite a bit from the 5-year average of 8.5%. Current, and if I forget to forward, please let me know. Current average rent is $16.39 per square foot on a full service basis. This is okay, and the chart makes it look like there has been more fluctuation or movement than there really has been. The 5-year average was $16.24 per square foot. So we're making a little bit of progress, but basically in the office market, we're just holding steady, which I'll take it. That's okay. Concessions are still occurring. However, these are usually in exchange for longer lease terms of 7 or 10 years. 2016 brought the first new speculative construction to the market. And you'll see in the chart here, we have, I can commiserate now. I can't really see the chart, but from memory, we have absorption, deliveries, and vacancy. And the deliveries are illustrated by the blue lines with absorption in orange. So you can see the space that was delivered was quickly absorbed, but really there hasn't been a lot of new construction in recent years. The declining vacancy, you can see here, I mean, you could snowboard down that vacancy slope if you were so inclined. But this has lowered risk in this property type, and it's enticing investors to invest now in more secondary markets like Salem-Keizer. The average cap rate for office properties in Salem-Keizer is 7.3%. All right, so I'll just do a brief overview of our new office development. These are the three most exciting projects, to me anyway. This is Parkfront, and you can see in the slide in the upper left-hand corner, we are under construction right now. This is going to be a 4-story building, Class A professional office. It will be partially owner-occupied. There's 1 floor remaining to lease out. And again, I can't quite see it, but I believe the asking rent is, it's $245 per square foot per month. Completion is anticipated for later this year. And again, the style of the building was designed after the Flatiron building in New York. So this is going to be a great addition to our central business district right off of Riverfront Park. Next, this is Vista 340. This is the former Prudential building in South Salem on Commercial Street Southeast. The property used to be fully occupied by the state of Oregon. However, several construction deficiencies were uncovered, I guess, and the state of Oregon vacated. The property was put on the market and ultimately sold for a liquidation price of roughly $60 a square foot. The buyer then came in, invested significant capital in clearing up all of the construction defects and redesigning the entire exterior of the building. An anchor tenant has now been secured, Statesman Journal newspaper, and there are a couple of vacant suites offered for lease. Next, we have Boulder Creek South. This is a project also in Salem, South Salem, down off of 12th Street Southeast. It has been master leased or anchor leased to North Bank Surgical Center. There are 2 smaller spaces available for lease at $25.80 a square foot on a modified gross basis, and they're looking for completion as of December of 17. All right, in the retail market, we have a current average vacancy of 3.7%, which is great. We're filling up the space. The 5-year average was 5.5%. The only bad news here is that rents are struggling to keep pace. So I would say of all of the sectors in Salem-Keizer, retail is still struggling a bit. Current average rent is $12.57 per square foot on a triple net basis. This is less than the 5-year average of just under $13 a square foot. That being said, keep in mind, these rents are reflective of the average. So there's a pretty big, large discrepancy between mature space and new space. So we're finding mature retail spaces rent for around $1 per square foot, versus, or I should say $12 a square foot, versus the newer spaces. It's not uncommon to see leases ranging from $30 to $38 or $40 a square foot. Again, this slide illustrates the absorption and deliveries. The blue line is the delivery, so there has not been a lot of retail construction in recent years, but what has happened has been absorbed. For properties that are offered for lease, it's taking at least a year on average to absorb that vacant space. The average cap rate for retail properties in Salem-Keizer is 6.9%. All right, new construction is occurring, even though the market is still a little bit tenuous in this, for this property type. However, I have noticed that of the new construction that's happening in this sector, most of it is service-related uses, such as restaurants, particularly Starbucks. So that's still exciting. I'll just go through the few new developments here. The first one, this is in West Salem, and it's kind of a love it or hate it project for our local community. It's right at the gateway into West Salem, and this is the new Goodwill. There are also two pad sites, which it's kind of hard to see in the pictures, but two pad sites out front right at the corner of Wallace and Edgewater. One has been leased to Jersey Mike's and Carl's Jr., and the other remains vacant. However, I believe lease negotiations are underway. Next, this is an exciting development. This is a new Starbucks flagship store with a drive-through at the corner of Ferry and Church Streets in our CBD. And this is the former location of Barrick Funeral Home, which was in, you can see the picture down on the right. This is a huge improvement for our city. Although Barracks had been there for a long time, as you can see. So it was kind of sad to see it go in a way. But now we have a nice, shiny new Starbucks. Next this is kind of an interesting one. This is in South Salem also at the Southgate Shopping Center. This is a new 2-tenant inline building leased to Chipotle and Panda Express. It opened last month. And the kind of interesting thing about this one is that there is very limited parking. There are a few spaces available in front of the building. However, most of the parking is shared with the rest of the development, which is somewhat removed from this location. So I'm not quite sure how people are going to go in and out, and how that traffic flow is going to work long term. But I believe rents were roughly correct me if I'm wrong, if I can't see the slide, but I think they were around $32 a square foot. Next, still in South Salem, fronting Commercial Street, we have another Starbucks with a drive-through. This project is just now coming out of the ground. They're doing site work right now, and it's the Starbucks, which is the anchor tenant, and then there's also a separate inline building that will have, I believe, 2 to 3 tenant spaces. The project is coming out of the ground. However, there is no pre-leasing yet done for this inline building. So if you have any ideas, we would love to hear. Okay, next, this is where the excitement starts. This is multifamily, and I think similar to Leah's presentation and probably Greg's as well, this is and has been one of the most exciting and profitable submarkets for the last few years. Most recent vacancy averaged 2.6% as of the first quarter of 2017. This was a slight increase over the prior year, but it remains well below the 5% industry benchmark and really just reflects frictional vacancy, which I'm sure you know, but just means that tenants are moving from one place to another. It doesn't mean that the demand has decreased. When I was doing the research for this presentation, I talked to several property managers who reported vacancy rates ranging from roughly 1 to 4%. They all cited nominal turnover, waiting lists, new units are being absorbed quickly if they are offered. Okay, you are all dealing with this up in Portland. Even down in Salem, we have experienced significant rent appreciation in the past year. So from 16 to 17, average rent appreciation registered 19%. So a whopping 19% in our local Salem-Keizer area. So that's definitely being felt by the community. The largest increases were in 2-bedroom, 1-bath, and 3-bedroom units. And those were both in excess of 20%. It kind of goes without saying, but this disparity between income growth and rent growth is not sustainable. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in the near term. Contributing factors are the increased population, lack of supply, increasing home prices, generational shifts. So the millennial generation has not been as interested in buying homes, or they have not been able to afford them because of the increasing home prices. But as they do get older, like Leah said, and they start their own families, some of those generational shifts may subside a bit. But one other interesting thing, when I was interviewing property managers, several of them said that they were trying to take a preemptive approach and were raising rents aggressively now in anticipation of potential rent control in the future. So kind of chasing our tails a little bit. In addition to the increases in rent, roughly 70% of landlords and property managers are also instituting utility, either bill backs or flat fees. All right, with regard to absorption, we have had some new construction in multifamily development, and it's all absorbed immediately, which I would say is the key takeaway from this chart. The absorption standard is roughly 12 units per month, but we are exceeding that by double or triple that amount. So it's not uncommon right now to see absorption of 36 units per month for new product. This clearly illustrates the imbalance of supply and demand and the need for additional multifamily units. Luckily, our developers are stepping up to the plate. I have building permit activity illustrated in the chart here per the City of Salem. There were 466 new multifamily units permitted in 2016, which is almost as much as the prior 3 years combined. So our developers are making an attempt to remedy this imbalance of supply and demand. There are currently 1,372 new units planned or under construction currently in our local market. That includes the South Block Phase 2 project, just right next to the new Parkfront office building. South Block Phase 2 was completed in January and fully absorbed in February. We have 7 projects that are currently under construction, totaling 652 units, and another 6 projects in various stages of planning. So I'm going to do a quick recap of the projects that are under construction. This is an exciting one, 245 Court Street Northeast. This is at the northeast corner of Court and Front Streets in the Salem downtown core. There's going to be 3,000 square feet of ground floor retail space and 40 upper level apartment units, many of which will have beautiful views of the Willamette River. Unit types will include studio, 1 and 2 bedrooms. And they've gotten the site ready, as you could see by the lower picture, but no vertical construction has commenced yet. We are looking for summer 2018 completion. Next, we have River Valley Terrace. This is located in West Salem. It's 60 units with 2 and 3 bedroom unit types. I would anticipate completion in the near term. Heading out south, we have the Fountains on Skyline. This is a 70-unit project with townhouse and flat styles, 2 bedroom units, and nice amenities. It's a gated entry in a bucolic park-like setting. They left some of the trees, which is nice. Rent up is beginning now. Further south we get to the fairway, and this is the former Battle Creek Golf Course site. It's a large project for our local community with 201 units, 1, 2, and 3 bedroom unit styles, and there's a long list of amenities. Upper end interior finishes, in-unit appliances, clubhouse, swimming pool, fitness center, the works. Rent up is beginning in May of 17, and completion is scheduled for March of 2018. There's one project in North Salem that's currently under construction. That's the Hyacinth Street Apartments, 56 units, 1, 2, and 3 bedroom unit styles. Rent up is starting later this month, and completion is anticipated for this May. And this is a good example of creative site planning. You can see in the picture there's this somewhat triangular shaped grassy area in front, and this is a city-owned retention pond. And so the developer had to work hard to design the site in order to maximize the usable potential of the site by efficient placement of the buildings and site improvements. Lastly, we have Kaiser Station Apartments. This is a 180-unit project with 1 and 2 bedroom unit types. Again, a long list of amenities: community lounge, swimming pool, fitness center, in-unit washer dryers. It's under rent up now with completion scheduled for this month. One last project of note, and this is still in the planning phase. However, a local development group, Mountain West Investments, has partnered with the Community Resource Trust to bring 180 affordable housing units to North Salem off of Portland Road. And the City of Salem has committed roughly $1.15 million in home grant money and urban renewal funds, and an additional $4.8 million will come from the Oregon Housing and Community Services. So this is a good example of a local developer working with the city and other agencies to partner on affordable housing projects to help bridge this affordability gap that we're seeing stemming from the increased rents. Capitalization rates for multifamily properties have decreased for the seventh year in a row. So keep an eye out, though, for increased interest rates, which may result in increased cap rates as well. All right, lastly, we have the industrial sector. The current average vacancy is 1.8%. Who would have ever thought I would be standing up here saying the industrial sector is the I'm tongue-tied now. Thank you. Yes, the darling of the market. The 5-year average was 6.8%, which even that was low for industrial, but 1.8%. So we definitely need new industrial development. The average rent is $7.49 a square foot. That's a 40% increase over the 5-year average. This rent growth is not sustainable over the long term. So to remedy that, our local, probably regional developers have invested a lot of capital in new construction. And you can see here there has not been a lot of new construction over the past several years. Again, the blue bar is deliveries, with orange being absorption. So you can see there with the orange absorption bars, we have absorbed the spaces that were available. And the declining absorption in 16 and 17 does not necessarily mean a lack of demand. It just means there's not a lot of space out there to be absorbed. There's 500,000 square feet currently under construction. There are 2 projects that I wanted to mention just briefly. The first is out at the Mill Creek Corporate Center. This is Henningsen Cold Storage. This is the first phase of a 4-phase development. Phase 1 will be complete this May, and they are definitely looking for partners to share in the symbiotic use. It's a $27 million project in a partnership with the City of Salem and DAS. Lastly, we have the Donald Industrial Park. This is Wilco Farm Cooperative partnered with the Hazelnut Growers of Oregon on this new processing facility, and this was an effort to consolidate their, I guess they had their administration and processing and storage uses scattered throughout the area. And so this was an effort to consolidate all of those and bring them under one roof. So that is under construction now. Groundbreaking occurred in November of 16. So just to wrap up here, significant new construction will be delivered this year that may help alleviate some of the supply issues that I've discussed. There's a limited amount of readily available developable land. Sorry. I'm trying to hurry. But the land that is available, it generally has issues. So most sites require either demolition of existing improvements, creative land use planning like the Hyacinth Street apartments that I mentioned, zone changes, etc. I would anticipate seeing increases in vacancy over the next year once this new construction does come to pass. Rent growth will slow, and again, higher interest rates will result in higher capitalization rates as investors are requiring higher returns due to the increased cost of their money. I guess that's it. Thank you very much.
Are you going to wander?
Was that?
Are you going to wander and shake
Yes.
hands while you go?
I'll shake hands, but
Sorry, everybody.
I'm not big on standing in front of the podium, so is that, can you hear me? Okay. That pointer. Pointer. I don't think this is, yeah, I guess it is. So my name is Greg Moore. I started in appraisal under Katie's dad back in 93. So I've been doing it for a while. I've been in Bend since 98, and started my own business in 2004. So small company. I do general commercial, ag, vineyards, orchards, development land, resorts, recreation, that kind of thing. Do a lot of litigation work, and I've got a partner that does nothing but ag work. So I've got the one sector I don't do a lot of work in is multifamily. So I'm sorry, I know a lot of you guys are pretty focused on that, but I'll do what I can to share the information I do know. So Central Oregon, we've got, like Katie was saying, it's all good news to a certain extent. The bad news is our supply. We're woeful in our supply of land and improved property, especially for what we've seen as far as growth in population and business and jobs and everything else. So I'll try to go pretty quickly. Population will go through fast. We're booming. Is this working fine, everybody? Okay. The growth in both population and jobs in the economy is much broader than what we've had in the past, and it's giving us optimism that we're not going to take a big header like we did 10 years ago. And so that'll be a big part of the presentation. We don't have the activity that some of my friends here have had as far as much in the way of new sales or active listings, but we'll go through that. Notable projects: OSU Cascades opened their new campus this last year. That's a big one for us. We'll look in the future. I'll touch on some ag issues and a little bit on the gorge. So Bend's population is boomed. We were growing fast before the crash, and we're doing the same again now. So we had the third fastest population growth in the U.S. in 2016 of any metropolitan area. So we're now nearing 85,000 people, 30,000 in Redmond, which is also one of the fastest growing MSAs. So that's given our market a lot more of a profile that's able to attract some of the businesses like Trader Joe's and Five Guys. Chick-fil-A is going to be going into a new center on the north end of town. The the growth of the market, and a lot of it's always going to be based on tourism. And so we're diversifying on our economy, we're diversifying on our tourism as well. Instead of it just being a summer and winter playground, we are now big on sporting events, on the beer tourism with 35 breweries. It's one of the highest, if not the highest, brewery per capita in the country. But the sporting events, I'll go over, it's kind of a new thing for me. My son's a lacrosse player, so we participated in this tournament this last year, the Oregon Lacrosse Classic. They have over 3,000 athletes. It's the biggest festival in the western U.S., I believe, and one of the biggest in the country. And so you got about 6,000 people with parents, families, officials, organizers, players, coaches, everything coming into town. That same weekend is the Cascade Cycling Classic, and the same weekend is a huge equestrian event. So we've got every hotel from basically Crescent to Madras is full on that week, and so the restaurants. We're also doing the same thing. We had just last month we had the cross country nationals in Oregon. They're filling it up. We've got so there'll be a little bit more on that later. The business is much more healthy than we had before. So as you can see here, the Central Oregon Business Index from the University of Oregon has us the highest we've ever been, way higher than pre-recession crash. We were named as the first out of 201 small MSAs in the nation for job growth in 2014 and 15. So we're growing fast, and named Small Business and Careers Best Small City last year by Forbes. Telecommuting is huge for us. I guess we're also top in the nation with that. We got 13% of our workforce is working out of the house. Brewing, distilling, you've got well over 1,000 people in brewing and distilling. Advertising, marketing is big. Telecommunications, Ibex Global, who is it's that big call center down by the old mill district, they just announced that they're doubling their workforce from 500 to 1,000 in 2017. So we've got Consumer Cellular is the big call center out in Redmond. So that's big. Sony has their Bend studio game development in Bend. Pharmaceutical, Bend Research is huge. Capsugel bought them out, I think it was last year, if not the year before. Aviation, we're building Epic Aircraft has got their certification last year, I believe. Residential, so with that kind of growth and with what we'll talk about later, the lack of land, our values have likewise shot up. We are now back above, back above, that's $375,000 is our median home price in the first quarter of 2017. So that's higher than the pre-recession, and we finally got over it. But at the other end of the spectrum, we have no inventory. We get down 400 or so houses available. We'll talk about the UGB expansion. They finally got it approved at the end of 2016. LUBA finally let us go. But we dropped from 8,500 acres down to 2,300 acres, and so we're going to be we're going to be in trouble before any land gets annexed, and it's not going to do us a ton of good. Trying to see. Redmond's growing fast too. They've got 1,000 homes approved in 10 new projects last year. Trying to see. Yeah, okay. Office and industrial. We only have one new big office project down at the Crane Shed Commons, a 4-story Class A building right there. It's pretty much all leased up, pre-leased before completion. I believe it's all over $2.35 a foot, triple net. Our vacancy rates are all under 5% right now, and multifamily is under 1%. There's only 14 active listings of what I'd call investment grade property in Bend. So there's just not much there. Lease rates, for anything new, you're over $2 a foot on office or retail. 235, 250 for good stuff. Industrial, we're over 70 cents a foot. This is all triple net terms. Hotels, talked about already. We've got, between recently completed, in construction or proposed, we've got at least 8 new hotels and over 600 rooms that are going to be completed by 2018. Over 3,200 rooms, so it's big. Visit Bend is our tourism organization. They do a great job of marketing us, and especially working on these shoulder months. So we're trying to have a stable population to work, give our downtown businesses, our restaurants, everything else a chance at working through between the big peak seasons. So we're pretty excited. I didn't realize until yesterday that we've got the World Wrestling Tournament in 2018. I didn't. So that's pretty exciting. But cross country nationals, we had it this last year. They had to, you can see there, they had to blow the snow off the track on the golf course. But Snowmageddon was tough on us this year. But even with the snow that we had this year, we still had year-over-year growth in our overnight lodging taxes. So we've done well. I'm trying to think if there's anything new. I'm trying to go as fast as we can. Destination resorts. This is kind of a active thing we got going right now. Pretty exciting. Remington Ranch is out there between Redmond and Palo Butte. It had been one of the big destination resorts that had been proposed and approved before the crash. A couple thousand acres, 700 home sites, 27 holes of golf. They actually cut and watered and had set up the front 9 holes on one of the courses, and then everything went south. Columbia took the property back. They sold it in 2015 for $2.5 million to investor group. They just went pending, and 2 developers, and it's going to happen fast. They're going to close. Just went pending, I think, in the last month or so. And it's supposed to close by next month for $5.9 million. These are folks that are looking to develop it in a resort format, maybe a little less subdivision-ish than what we've had with a lot of our destination resorts. They're looking to focus on overnight lodging and recreation, and maybe cut back a little bit on the number of homes, and maybe not go as much into the golf. So they have to use the front 9. They have to use the investment they've got. They'll probably do the full 18, but they're not going to go crazy on golf like a lot of the resorts have been. Thornburg Ranch is another one that has been that's right by Eagle Crest. That project was dead, stick a fork in it kind of thing, and the owners have been working hard to get this thing through. They've got it down to 1 appeal left with the state, and the groups that are. They just got through a favorable decision by the Supreme Court and the appellate court, so it goes back to the county, and we'll see what happens. They're looking to develop 500-600 homes there. So apartments, we just don't have any vacancy, and we've got a ton developing, but nothing's ever for sale. We haven't had any active apartments of note that I know of in 2 years. So they're trying to find whatever they can to squeeze in, but then at the same time, with the increase in the single family value, with the increase in values there, the lack of supply, we're developing, but I don't know where, and this is the one negative that I've got to say about Bend, is where people are going to work. This project here is an apartment project that's going in Northwest Crossing. That's not exactly going to be affordable housing. So we are going to be in a little bit of a pinch for where people are going to live, and that's where it's going to push people, economic refugees, Prineville, Redmond, Madras, Lapine. They're going to see a big surge in their demands too. Cap rates, we are generally in the low 6s, 5s and low 6s. These are some of the most, I just picked some of the more notable or representative sales. Clausen Drive, this is up on the north end of town. It's kind of an awkward industrial quasi-retail project, just sold. that's a 6.95, but that was a tough one to market, and so my friends at Compass, they said that was a difficult one. So that's high for them, but everything else is lower. So this industrial project on American, 965. So that was $113 a square foot and a 6.4 cap. Borden's Corner on Dean Swift. That's a retail center with it's kind of anchored by the library and a bank. So that sold at a 6.5 cap, and that was a $255 a foot. Next one on Greenwood is a new retail center anchored by, well, it's not anchored, Back Porch Coffee and Emerald Smoothies. Sold, that one's a $404 a foot sale for new retail and a 5.12 cap, fully leased up. Frank's Landing in Redmond, so we're go up Redmond, we're getting a little bit higher cap rate. All these are 100% leased except for the first one I said. 7.3 cap, and that was a $160 a foot on that one. So most everything for sales between 5 and 6. OSU Cascade, this is a big deal for us. They opened the new campus in September. And they are negotiating with the Deschutes County for 72 acres. It used to be a landfill. About half of that site is developable for buildings. They're looking to do maybe some housing, a little bit more classroom, that type of thing. But the rest of it, they would do parking and athletic fields and that kind of thing. But the whole area, that part of town, is feeling a lot of pull from the university there. People are looking to buy there. And the city did change a lot of the zoning in that southwest part of town that used to be the business area that was kind of miszoned at light industrial when nobody really wanted to do light industrial down there. Now it's mixed use, and it's going to start turning that part of town into a lot more. I think we're going to see probably some upper floor residential use and downstairs business, office, whatever. Notable developments. Last year, I think here, we had just heard about on the north end of town a new Fred Meyer anchored center, this Gateway North. They had turned in their master plan. They are working with the city and ODOT right now to get through traffic concerns, but they're looking to do 200,000 square feet of retail and a restaurant. Fred Meyer will be there. In their marketing profile, they got LL Bean and whatever. I'm not sure what they would end up getting in there. But then they're looking at 160 units of senior housing and some other multifamily. Not in here, I didn't put, but there's a new retail center on the north end of town off 97 at Roble, which will have a Chick-fil-A, and I forget how many square feet total. I think it was like 20,000 square feet. Miller Tree Farm, this one down here is just an interesting one. This was originally proposed as destination resort. They ended up scrapping that and went with a kind of a cluster development. 50 2-acre home sites. 32 sold in the first 2 months, between $370,000 and $900,000 per lot. So that's getting pretty heady as far as back up to what we had pre-recession as far as extreme values. I think we'll skip through there fast. The UGB expansion was approved, like I said, 2,300 acres roughly instead of the original 8,500 acres. So infill is the word, I guess, that they want us to develop. Most of the land is down here in the southeast corner of town, which is right now very light on commercial, industrial and everything. So they're looking to really force the issue down in that part of town. We'll see what happens. The roads are not necessarily the greatest. They're doing a whole new sewer interceptor along this whole east side of town. But that's where things are going. A little bit on the west side, a little bit on northeast. But so if you're looking to see where you put money, it'll be interesting to see how this all develops down there. Politics. We're supposed to stay away from that. So this last election, we're seeing Deschutes County turning more pink or white. The city of Bend is pretty much blue now. And with the university going in, it's probably going to be more blue. I grew up in Santa Cruz, and I think when my parents moved there, it was pretty red and when the university moved in, it turned blue. So we'll see how that changes the politics and property ownership and business and culture and everything else as we go through. Ag. Little changes in the character of the ag market. Before last year, a lot of the strength was in hay farms. I mean, there's a lot of demand for hay farming. 2016, we saw a big increase in the high-profile recreation type market. We had a couple of big sales, 2 over $8 million with river frontage. So that's kind of some of what's more noteworthy up in Central Oregon. In the gorge, not a whole lot of activity. I think there was one cherry orchard. There is supposedly some investor interest in buying cherry orchards up in the gorge, and they're willing to pay above what anybody's ever paid really before. The gorge, I didn't see as much activity in Hood River this last year. The D amphitheater is approved and denied and approved and denied. I think it's approved as we speak now, I believe. New Hampton Inn down by the port's really nice. Set up there, developing the retail around that, I believe, right now. Trying to think of anything else there. Limited cap rate or anything data just because there's not much activity, but probably somewhere in the 6 to 7% range there. The Dow's a little bit more activity. Some investors were buying property actively up in the Dalles. This project here is mixed use, owned by a CCIM MAI guy that comes here, I think, probably. He just sold that for $130 a foot. The same buyers bought some medical office space. Lone Pine Village is, I don't know if you guys have heard that, but it's a kind of a nightmare disaster project on the east side of town, right by the water's edge, where the bridge goes over to Dallasport. That project just sold to recently sold to a local investor. It's got a lot of hair on it as far as ODOT roundabout requirements and Indian burial grounds and all kinds of stuff. That does it for me. I want to thank you guys. As an appraiser, we rely on you guys a lot for data and help and just verifying information. We've had an interesting year. House Bill 2501 was proposed by, I think, mostly residential brokers down in K Falls area. They couldn't get anybody to do any appraisals, and they thought it'd be a good idea to have ACLB dictate our appraisal fees. And luckily, it died in committee, but we want to do whatever we can to help you guys out with, and whether it's trying to get something done on a rush order if we can, that's great. But it's also hard to get appraisals done in 3 weeks. so I hope you guys understand that. I think that's it, though.